memories.
Attention for the press corps. I'm Colonial Correspondent Callidius. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you the latest news from the Kiowa Valley War, here in the 98th conflict of the Foxhole War. It's day 337 as this war progresses. Throughout this war, we have seen a total of 1,148,000 dead, with the Wardens facing a 20% higher casualty rate so far this war. Throughout this war, Allbreaker has seen the most deaths, with 177,000 combined deaths, with as of right now 1,100 dying per hour per side. As we look to the map currently, we see that the Wardens are currently up in Reliquia, facing off against the Wardens in gold. This is in Allbreaker Isles, having not broken through into Nevish Line yet. Moving east, the Moors. The Colonials currently have a front line north of Hardstone, facing the Wardens there, who have a number of armoured vehicles on both sides, fighting there alongside the infantry combat taking place as the fight for the Moors continue. Moving east, the fighting in Callahan's Passage has been contained to Solas Gorge. Was contained to Solas Gorge, with the Colonials having captured both Whitechapel and the Locken Berth victory point recently. That's a major blow to the Wardens there. In Viper Pit, the Colonials are held out in Fleck Crossing, with Wardens pressing on all sides to eliminate them from the region, with the Wardens having not advanced south into Marburn Hollow as of yet. In Weathered Expanse, the Wardens still hold strong at Necropolis, pushing Foxcatcher, with which the Colonials currently hold. There is a number of infantry fighting alongside armoured vehicles. However, Frost March has also been captured by the Colonials. It does not appear that there is heavy fighting going on at Frost March. In Goscroft, the Wardens are held at Blackwatch, with fighting carrying on at the Promethean's bridges, along with Protoss currently being a neutral territory. Neither side currently hold it. And finally ending it with Stonecradle. The fighting is immediately outside of Buckler Sound, and we do in fact have a reporter on the ground in Colonial Correspondent Lucas Parker.
Yes, let's get this audio equipment set up real quick, and we'll see if we can patch you in here.
Awesome, we are going to await that patch in.
Alright, we should be good to go. I know last time we were running a broadcast, we did have a few technical issues, so we'll have to wait and see if those pop up again. But for now, yes, this is Lucas Parker. You're with me, live from Stonecradle, specifically Buckler Sound. Now, I know he went over the state of the rest of the map, but we're going to take a very narrow view here, specifically the Stonecradle front line. I've been here for the past 15-20 minutes, maybe. And what we're looking at right now is Colonials do control the town hall. The area around the town hall is very heavily shelled. There's craters and some partially collapsed trenches here and there, along with a few what looks to be leveled garrison houses. The garrison houses that have been hit by artillery so much that they can no longer be rebuilt. I am seeing fairly sizable Warden armor involvement. There is at least one anti-tank half-track, one prototype outlaw, one up-armored Warden light tank, the Devitt Ironhide, and a mortar light tank as well. It does also seem like the concrete line that the Colonials are currently up against is partially wet in one of the forwardmost bunkers, but the rest of it does appear to be dry. One of those bunkers does look like it has been destroyed, but it does also seem that that line is still holding fairly strong. Not sure how long the Colonials have been fighting here. The Wardens and Colonials currently scrapping over this area in between the Warden bunker line, which is just outside of Buckler Sound to the northeast, and the Colonial line, which is a fair amount looser as they are on the advance to the southwest. I have seen some colonial armor presence. I do know that there was at least one light tank involved earlier and one light tank destroyer. Unsure whether those are still on the field at the moment. I don't see them on the colonial lines. Warden's making heavy use of auto rifles on this front line as well. It does seem that they are fairly well supplied. One would expect that from a concrete bunker. As you see Warden light tank moving in to put some pressure on the colonial infantry. Grenades being thrown here and there. What we're seeing right now is mostly a fire and maneuver section, because the colonials aren't currently up on the Warden bunkers. So that sounded like an Ignifus that was just fired on that colonial light tank. It bounced. Warden light tank. It bounced off of the Warden light tank. Does appear that there is colonial armor moving in to engage. AT half-track sparring with the light tank destroyer. Shots exchanged both sides, both of them penetrated. Light tank destroyer looks like it's disengaging. The crew has hopped out of that anti-tank half-track. I assume they're repairing. But, as I was saying, this has turned into mostly fire and maneuver warfare, as colonials and wardens scrap between the area southwest of this bunker line that they have. They're probably a good 30-40 meters away at this point. Colonials basically relying solely on infantry to keep this town hall under their control. There is the occasional armor presence, though usually it's just in a supporting role and it will come up, like this light tank right here, exchanging shots with the anti-tank half-track. Both bounced, taking fire from something else. So the light tank started retreating. They've been coming in over the past several minutes and sparring. As I'm sure you can hear, they'll drive up and exchange a shot or two and then pull back out. That might be to wear down their armor, or it might just be an attempt to... Oh, something is firing on that mortar light tank. It's nestled itself down in between a garrison house and their bunker line. Second hit. Looks like it's the colonial light tank firing on it. That second hit ricocheted. Mortar light tank is now trying to move. Second penetration. Mortar light tank is not disabled, it seems, but the driver did get out of it. Colonial light tank moving up to close that gap. Fires again. This one clips the garrison house. The light tank and the anti-tank half-track are still on the hill. Another hit on that mortar tank. It is still not disabled. That one ricocheted. Anti-tank half-track now moving in to try and deter that light tank. Kind of just in a staring contest right now with each other, as the light tank sits on the road just south of the town hall. Takes a penetrating hit from that anti-tank half-track. Still exchanging fire.
85.
I think that light tank is actually now backed out to repair. Fairly unlucky right there. It does seem like they had a fairly good opportunity to try and knock out that motor light tank, and it just did not want to happen. Firing into the back of it, it bounced twice. As you may know, and for those of you who may not, it is very, very unlikely for shells to bounce on the back of a tank. The armor is thinner on the back. For those of you just joining us, this is Lucas Parker, live with the PressCorps, reporting from Buckler Sound in Stonecradle, where the Colonials have made some pretty significant gains and are now currently up against a concrete Warden bunker line. There's armor involvement and very significant amounts of infantry here. I'd say at least 60 on each side.
Not nice. Not nice. How the fuck did he get taken?
Warden armor still holding just at their bunker line. Again, I'll reiterate, the bunker immediately off to their right, their forwardmost bunker, is wet on the front.
If you hold on, I can heal you up.
It does not seem like that motor light tank was repaired, at least if it has been, I didn't see it. The armor on it has been stripped pretty heavily. Same goes for that anti-tank half-track, as they've been sparring with the colonial armor over the past 10-15 minutes or so. Daylight's starting to break as it's now 0600 hours, day 337 in the war. And get a little bit more visibility as to what's actually going on.
Not that one.
This Warden armor starting to make moves now that it's daytime. 2 penetrating hits on a light tank destroyer, both from the Outlaw and Warden light tank. Another Colonial light tank moving in to cover it. That light tank destroyer did get its fuel tank hold. It is retreating. Seems like Colonials have also brought up a fair amount of their own armor now that day has broken. I also see in the Warden lines now a field anti-tank gun. This is a high-velocity field anti-tank gun. It does seem to be nestled away, maybe for later use. Got a Colonial light tank flanking southeast across the river. Infantry supporting. This Colonial light tank moves around to try and get at that mortar light tank. Again, mortar light tank nestled in between the garrison house, the destroyed garrison house, and their bunker line. And there's a few hay bales there as well. It's a very tight spot to maneuver around in. Colonial light tank now firing on the side of that mortar light tank. That first shot it fired ricocheted. No movement at all to counter this. Warden AT infantry with an AT sticky. Misses the sticky from near point blank. Maybe he just slipped his grip on that grenade there. Very, very close. Quickly put down by the Colonial infantry in support of that tank. The tank is starting to be a little more cautious. Tanks on the hill still moving back and forth, sparring. Colonial armor has backed out for now. Mostly just infantry that they're dealing with and Colonial infantry AT. White ash flask thrown on the flanking Colonial light tank. It is tracked. Backing up, now taking fire from an anti-tank rifle as Colonial infantry AT opens up on that mortar light tank. Mortar light tank is disabled. Second hit destroyed. Mortar light tank is no longer in play. However, it has quickly been replaced by that field anti-tank gun that I mentioned earlier. Now crewed and on the front line, ready to go. Holding steady next to these concrete bunkers. We'll see if Colonial armor makes any moves to engage that. Keep in mind, these things are very, very scary. They will usually disable a light tank in 2 or so hits. And they fire much faster than regular tanks. Field AT gun moving in, and Outlaw on that flanking light tank that was stuck down there. It was tracked. It's taken 2 penetrating hits. Black smoke, heavily damaged here. Field AT gun is trying to maneuver into a position where it can hit. I think the Outlaw is going to move in and finish it. Penetrating hit from both. Field anti-tank gun securing the kill on that light tank. Was a trade a tank for a tank there, though it does seem a little unlucky that they got tracked. But it does happen. Something you have to take into account. Penetrations, it ricochets again as the field anti-tank gun fires on Colonial armor. Another penetration as it hits this LTD moving through. Again, this thing hits very hard. A second hit from either of those tanks with that field AT gun will disable them. Seems Colonials aren't fielding any medium armor here, just light armor. Colonial tanks have pulled back, and so have the Warden tanks here. So in that instance, I'm going to go ahead and back out here. We'll continue to bring you updated coverage as this front line develops, but it does seem like it's slowing a little bit in intensity here. So I'll toss you back over to our other Colonial correspondent, Callidius, and we'll see if we can get some coverage on some of the other front lines. But while we do that, we'll take a short music break and get all our technical side situated, and then we'll be back with you in maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
Thanks for listening to 121.5 WPRSS Sunhaven, serving the disputed Siva Valley War Zone. PressCorps Radio, the best and brightest since we screwed in the light bulb. For more content, including war story documentation, newspaper postings, and information on how to join the Corps, visit PressCorps World Headquarters through the Discord link below.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Colonial Correspondent Callidius reporting live from the front line here in Headstone, the Moors. I am currently witnessing a large contingent of Warden tanks pushing into Headstone as we speak. with firebombs having been used by the wardens here. As you can hear, there is ATR shots firing on the warden tanks, which is a mix of prototype outlaws, light tanks and tankettes, but from what I can see from my location here. The ones have also deployed a number of fire bombs, meaning that there is large segments of the town currently actually ablaze. As Warden armor continues to push fast into Headstone here. Currently, it looks to be a large amount of colonial infantry, pretty much all colonial infantry. Pretty much only infantry is actually firing upon, or is actually active here in Headstone, with the majority of the colonial defense being in the form of pillboxes or bunker pieces. There is what looks to be one colonial armor piece in situation, with a one anti-tank half-track having also been brought up. You can hear the AT pillboxes there firing upon a number of the warden tanks. A warden field AT gun is also present. Field anti-tank gun there. With the wardens essentially dominating the northern half of Headstone here. Be it through superior tank firepower or superior just arms in general. I'm currently here at the actual town hall itself. There is a large number of gunshots that can be heard from this location, alongside a number of explosives, with tanks ever present and pushing quick. Both sides now deploying flamers, with Colonials now deploying flamers in retaliation, attempting to heat up infantry and tanks of the wardens here. Gas is also being used here on the front line. As we continue watching as the Warden infantry begins to flank the colonial infantry, essentially coming from all sides here in Headstone. With Warden armor still ever present on that eastern road from Headstone. As you can hear, lots of machine gun fire coming from both sides here, as the Wardens are now in the town itself, be it through armor or through infantry. With, well, as you can hear, lots of gunshots being fired in retaliation against the Wardens. With a Warden outlaw now pushing into the town. A number of Warden outlaws, that's, I believe, 2 or 3 outlaws pushing into the town itself, destroying a colonial bunker base in the process. With, again, with the Warden tanks pushing on towards the actual town hall itself. I would estimate they're about 10 meters now from the actual town hall, if that. So they are now directly firing practically on the town hall itself. As you can hear around me, the defenses are currently being attacked by Warden infantry. With the colonial held, I believe that was saw emplacement. I might be wrong there. Having been destroyed by Warden tanks, with the Warden tanks holding nothing back and firing on anything that seems to be moving that is colonial. With a Warden light tank now at the entrance to Headstone, alongside the Warden outlaws that are actually within Headstone itself. So, again, the Colonials are valiantly trying to defend this town hall here against a onslaught of Warden armor and infantry. As you can hear, machine guns firing on both sides at this point. As a Warden on a bike enters the town and is slain by AT there. As you can hear, there is a light tank that has just destroyed a bunker piece to my far east. However, the more pressing matter, I believe, for the Colonials here is the Warden outlaw that is currently to the north of the town. And getting closer to that town hall. Warden armor is currently destroying pillboxes to the east to allow for infantry and armor pieces alike to make progress on the town hall itself. With still the Colonial defenders here valiantly holding the Wardens off. With again the tanks and infantry being only tens of meters away from this town hall here. So as you can hear, I believe that is Warden armor now beginning to fire on the Colonial held headstone here. To the east of Headstone itself, so on the north-south road. Warden armor is currently just pinning down any Colonial response that may be trying to get through to Headstone, be it logistically or not. The Warden's still very much the aggressor here and attempting to capture this town hall. As yet another piece of this bunker base goes down, I believe to fire this time, as a large proportion of the bunker base is aflame. This bunker base being very much near the town hall. Not near enough that I believe fire can spread, but near enough that it is pretty much the last line of defense. As you hear, yet another piece goes down of it. To the north, that Warden outlaw is still advancing closer to the town hall. It's now starting to circumvent the town hall itself and go after some of the other bunker pieces around the western side. With fighting continuing to the east, with a Warden-held javelin, I believe, with a Lamentum on top being brought to the field to help dispel some of this Colonial infantry we see here. Very much only Colonial infantry being fielded here, with any form of armor being held up on that north-south road against the Warden light tanks that are present. As I say that, a Warden tankette goes down, destroyed by a light tank destroyer. The fighting here in Headstone is continuing on through day 337. 1,300 hours here. As it continues, as we continue here on day 337 here in Headstone, we see a large amount of the infantry slowly starting to encroach. Warden infantry slowly starting to encroach on the Headstone Town Hall itself, with the armor pieces of the Wardens having pulled back potentially to resupply and regroup. But definitely the Warden armor was a X factor in this fight so far. Definitely helping to push the Colonials out of Headstone. As a Warden armor piece now, as a Warden light tank attempts to push into the town itself, pretty much on the main road. With light tanks prowling, with Warden light tanks on the main road northeast and also in the town itself, and a large amount of Colonial infantry trying to flank to the main road, the main north-south road. As a Warden light tank is but 30 meters from my current position, practically 10 meters from the main town hall itself of Headstone. As we're hearing artillery now landing behind Headstone itself. Oh, with Warden infantry definitely entrenched within this town here. Be it with pistols, single shot weapons, or machine guns. With one armor now directly firing on the town hall itself. As you can see, one armor is firing directly on the Headstone Town Hall. This is Colonial Correspondent Callidius reporting from Headstone. And I will now be signing off for now.
Attention! For the Press Corps, I am Lucas Parker. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Bringing you live coverage back from Buckler Sound, specifically in Stonecradle. We were here earlier, before I handed it off to Callidius over in Headstone. In the time since we've been here, Wardens opened up with artillery and knocked down the Town Hall with light tank support. Town Hall is now white. Colonials and Wardens fighting a good 40-50 meters back from where they were before. That Devitt Ironhide and Outlaw that I had mentioned earlier, both now heavily damaged as far as armor is concerned, are holding steady immediately to the right of the Town Hall. I did see earlier there were a fair number of Warden light tanks doing a flanking maneuver off to the northwest. I can't see them there anymore. I don't know if they're still making that maneuver or if they've backed off to rearm, refuel, or what have you. But I do know that there's a fair number of infantry involved around those light tanks, along with some Colonial armor making some maneuvers, flanking the light tanks that have moved forward past the Town Hall. MPT takes a hit, its gun's knocked out, light tank firing into the Outlaw, tracked it. This Outlaw and MPT are both prototype, they have not been entirely unlocked yet. Tanks continuing to spar, Outlaw bounces off the hull of the light tank fires a second penetrating hit into that Outlaw. There's still one more light tank for that light tank to contend with. That one ricocheted. Outlaw now repairing. Keep in mind it is tracked. There goes that light tank. 3 Warden light tanks flanking, making that engagement. That's what killed that light tank, all firing at the same time, now firing on that MPT. The turret's still knocked out. The MPT disabled. Making a pretty hefty push here. Sticky's landing. There goes the MPT. Seems Colonials have lost their armor advantage and are losing the town because of it. Their infantry's holding strong, but those tanks are putting a lot of pressure on them. Flanking maneuver by the light tanks is backed up a good ways. We'll see if they make another move to push back up. There they are. One of the light tanks has been replaced by a field anti-tank gun. Light tanks are now backing out. The field AT gun is still there.
We're gonna have to back up.
Quite the front line we have here. It has slowed down a little bit. Most of the Warden infantry seems to be focused on just securing the area around that town hall so that they can rebuild it themselves. Again, this fighting is fairly vacuous front line as far as the Colonials are concerned. A good ways behind that town hall. Is not the case for the Wardens, though. Wardens currently have a concrete bunker line, albeit their forwardmost bunker is still drying. There is a fairly sizable concrete bunker line the Colonials were up against just not even 15 minutes ago. In that time, though, and again, for those of you who are just joining us, we're reporting live from Buckler Sound and Stonecradle. The Colonials, well, the Wardens had opened up with artillery on the Colonial Controls Town Hall, and that, combined with a decisive armor push, knocked the Town Hall down. Town Hall is yet to be rebuilt. Light tanks and field gun making a move. Those 3 light tanks have run back up. They are now up along a cliff face, firing on a Colonial bunker base. That field gun is faced about 45 degrees off to its left, basically deterring any Colonial armor that might move in and dissuade them. Though with 3 up-armored light tanks, I don't see a single vehicle making that much of a difference. And again, that field gun is very, very powerful. Outlaw starting to move again. Seems like getting it repaired was a bit more of a task than they had originally expected. It is still tracked. Now to the southeast of the town hall, right across from it. 3 light tanks repositioning. Does seem the Colonial infantry has moved back a good ways to take use of these rock walls for cover. The Stonecradle does have several short rock walls, and of course the Colonials are also in possession of some pillbox defenses that they have here that they do not have up ahead. Holding that ground right behind the town hall is probably not the best idea for them at the moment. Town hall has just turned into a blueprint. Wardens have begun rebuilding it. They've also disposed of the Colonial CV that was up there earlier. Seeing as this develops, it looks like their armor... I actually don't see their armor. I do see that field gun. That field gun is still holding steady to try and protect the town hall. But the armor looks like it's all on a resup. The Outlaw is still tracked, having trouble getting up a hill. I don't know if they can repair that. They might be out of BMATs, they might not, because the town hall did get blueprinted, but it did not get tapped. Which means it's not actually under construction. It's been blueprinted again, and the CV is hitting it. Or at least it looks like it is. Yes, it is actually hitting it. That is the town hall being built by the Wardens. I did hear a Typhon firing earlier. I couldn't tell where that Typhon was exactly. Though I think it was opening up on infantry. Hear the explosions off to my south. Warden light tanks flanked around and are now destroying the observation tower, which is currently held by the Colonials. That will be a big detriment to their vision. There that goes. As those up-armored light tanks continue to roll around as a group, making a fairly large flanking maneuver here. They're still running southwest. Colonial infantry moving to engage. Warden light tanks now engaging pillboxes. Seems these Warden light tanks are running 1 commander, and the other 2 tanks as platoon members. I only see 1 commander in this set of 3 tanks, but they have continuously been moving as a unit. So most likely an organized group there. Tanks continuing to engage. They're ripping through the pillboxes, continuing to move south now. There's another Colonial bunker base that I think they've set their sights on. Rapid changes to this front line. Just not even 20 minutes ago, the Colonials held this town hall. As Warden light tanks making quick work of this defensive line. It does seem that a large portion of the Colonial defensive line does not actually have AI, with the Town Hall not under their control. Light tanks destroying another CV. Seems their goals here is to prevent that Town Hall from being retaken by the Colonial Army. So they're driving them out of Stonecradle with a decisive push with armor. Night has now fallen. It is 1800 hours on day 337. Seems the light tanks are now backing out. Taking the moment to destroy another Colonial CV. But still, it does not seem that they want to operate in the dark. Most tank crews will not. It's hard to identify infantry anti-tank, especially at night. It's already dangerous during the day, but if you throw some visibility in there, it becomes exceedingly dangerous. HEs being thrown by the wardens on these inactive Colonial pillboxes. Lots of ground being gained here. I'm sure you can hear the Colonial defenses basically crumbling around me. This front line's actually starting to get a bit too tenuous. I think the Colonials are trying to regroup a fair ways back. And it's not to say that they have given up on this front line, but I don't see a dedicated attempt to hold this city within the city limits, which they may be making that decision because it may not be a tactical advantage for them. Keep in mind the Wardens still do have that group of light tanks in play, along with a distinct cover advantage here fighting city to city, and they're also in control of the town hall. I think the Wardens, while not trying to push out, I think the Colonials are trying to set up a good fallback line so that if they fail to hold the city, there is somewhere they can fall back to. But we're going to back up here and pull out for a moment, wait to see if this front line gets a little bit more safe for a reporter. Because at the moment it's a bit too risky for me to justify being up there, especially considering it being nighttime. So we'll take a short recess here, and I'll toss it back over to Callidius. We'll see if we can get you some coverage from another region. In the meantime, this is Lucas Parker for the PressCorps.
Attention for the PressCorps. This is Colonial correspondent Callidius reporting live from south of Headstone in the Moors, which the ones have recently captured off the back of about over the last 15 minutes or so. Having just heard the reports from my fellow correspondent Lucas Parker over in Butler Sound, and the Warden and Colonial fighting there. The fighting here, though, in Headstone is very much infantry on infantry, with armor playing a secondary role, as there is now Colonial armor pieces present on this front line, fighting against a much decreased number of Warden tanks. There, in fact, being a few up the north-south road from the Mound to Headstone. This is day 337, 2000 hours. And as you can hear, there is very few weapons being fired here, mostly infantry weapons being fired against the Warden infantry. As you hear a machine gun open up fire, that is a Warden machine gun opening up fire on Colonial soldiers, with the Wardens attempting to destroy some of the pillboxes that are lining the road here at the Mound, with a number of Warden armored pieces present up the road. It looks to be a few light tanks being fielded by the Wardens here. It is unsure if there is also in response what looks to be a prototype colonial falchion present here. Just a reminder that this is the PressCorps. Colonial correspondent Callidius here south of Headstone in the Moors. As you hear a large amount of infantry opening fire upon one another. This is Colonial and Warden infantry opening up fire here in the 98th conflict. As machine guns open fire on each other. Again, no single shot weapons of the Colonials being fired here. That's the primary sound you're hearing. Along with some shoring up of the defences from the ones. That's the sound of a Typhoon firing upon the one armour line. With a Warden RPG also firing, along with heavy machine guns being fired, and that is a pillbox down. A Colonial pillbox has been destroyed here by the Colonials. As yet more Typhoon shots are being thrown into a Warden light tank there. I believe it's Warden light tank. It's a bit hard to determine as it is 2100 hours currently in day 337 of the 90th conflict. As you can hear though, a definitive effort to defend to make defences is being done by the Colonials, with a large amount of Colonial infantry present here on this front line, attempting to block the one advance. Again, it is nearly pitch black here, so I am very much not surprised that the armoured presence from both sides is being careful. Not making too many big advances, as infantry can come out of nowhere and ruin their day. In this dark time, as shots are being traded, I am seeing a Colonial soldier return back to the lines, bloodied and in need of some medical attention, with another Colonial being downed not too far away from me. As we are hearing ATRs, Colonial-held ATRs and machine guns being fired there, with grenades coming in from the Wardens. Wooden grenades being thrown and killing some Colonial soldiers. This is 2100 hours, 2150 hours, sorry, here in the Moors. Where it is currently majority infantry on infantry action here. With lots of single shot weapons being used by the Colonials alongside what looks to be what sounds to be an emplaced weapon firing here on the mound here in the Moors, with a barrage of Typhoons opening fire on a Colonial light tank there. What sounded to be multiple Typhoons opening fire there, alongside a machine gun pillbox also attempting to, alongside a Colonial pillbox, sorry, taking down some Warden infantry. The fighting continuing here just north of the mound, as I believe the armored pieces of both sides here waiting for a bit more vision before progressing. Again, Colonial Correspondent Callidius here, reporting live from the mound in the moors. With, again, the Colonials opening up fire with Typhoons on to the ones, with pillboxes being destroyed by Warden light tanks. As you hear machine guns being fired in all directions by all sides. With, again, what looks to be an Outlaw's machine gun currently firing alongside Typhoons on a light tank, hitting multiple shots. And they look to be trying to suppress the Typhoons using what looks to be at least one Outlaw, with a number of other tanks being pulled up to support. As Typhoons just open up fire on the Warden contingent of tanks currently present here. This is turning into a battle of AT versus tank. As we're hearing shots being fired by Typhoons against the Warden armor, which looks to be numbering in the it looks to be numbering at least 5, if not 6, about 70 meters from my current location. This is Colonial Correspondent Callidius, as we hear yet another pillbox being destroyed here by the Wardens, who are looking to take more ground after having recently pushed out the Colonials from Headstone. Machine guns firing both sides, attempting to push back Warden infantry as AT are being fired from both sides. Warden light tanks attempting to destroy multiple pillboxes at once, sir. With having just destroyed another AT pillbox. The Wardens having done a large-scale assault there, taking multiple Typhoon shots and having pulled back to, I presume, repair. Again, this is the rapidly developing Frontline south of Headstone, as yet more shots are fired, as a Warden light tank has just driven onto some mines and is now being attacked from all sides by Colonial infantry and tanks, and has in fact been destroyed by the Colonial tanks that are now present from a mixture of regiments here. It looks to be a mixture of light tanks, specifically I believe Kreneskas, versus a number of Outlaws and Devits on this front line here. As you're hearing, this fight is both an infantry and tank fight here, with infantry attempting to use anti-tank rifles, Typhoons here on the Colonial side, to push back the Warden armoured. It is 2300 hours here on day 337. Again, there are still multiple armor pieces on both sides here, as silence falls across this battlefield, with only peppered by the occasional gunshot. This is Colonial Correspondent Callidius, reporting live from the moors, the mound. As you can hear, the Colonial tanks are now in fact slowly making a push. Having moved out of their position, they are now currently lining up for what I presume is an assault on the Warden armor pieces. As a Warden LUV has been destroyed here by the Colonial light tanks. It's strayed a bit too close there. As yet again, machine guns open fire on the Warden infantry, who are in dugout foxholes, as Warden Outlaws push harder into the front line here at the mound in the moors. Again, within the last sort of 30 minutes or so, we have seen the capture of Headstone by the Wardens, and they continue their assault southward, using multiple armor pieces, be it Outlaws or Devitt tanks, with the Colonials having only recently brought up counter armor in the form of Kroneskas and prototype falchions. As we're hearing yet more machine guns opening fire as more armor comes in for both sides. Again, this is Colonial Correspondent Callidius here for the PressCorps. As silence falls on this front line, save for a few hammers being swung by both sides to shore up armor and defenses. As fire opens once again, with pieces being destroyed and believe that's a flare shell being dropped, as a 40mm shell, I believe, finds its way into a nest of Colonials sat inside a hexagonal, as the emplaced gun opens fire once again, with machine guns being fired. The Warden armor is currently held about 80 meters from my location, which is about 40 meters from the nearest Warden tank. As a nearest Colonial tank, as a Colonial tank pushes, engaging the Warden tanks, in fact pushing and destroying yet another pillbox here. The Wardens, in fact, pushing even harder into this colonial front line here at the mound, having recently captured Headstone itself. A falchion taking multiple shells, alongside the Kroneskas here also taking what looks to have been a RPG shell. As the frontline fighting continues here on 0100 hours, day 338 of the 98th conflict. With flare shells being fired, I believe, by the Wardens there. As yet again, Warden armor is continuously pushing this crossroads here at the mound. Pushing the Colonials back. As a mine goes off under one of the Warden tanks. And this has been Colonial Correspondent Callidius signing off for now.
Thanks for listening to 121.5 WPRSS Sunhaven, serving the disputed Siva Valley War Zone. PressCorps Radio. Voted number 1 out of 1 stations still operating. For more content, including war story documentation, newspaper postings, and information on how to join the Corps, visit PressCorps World Headquarters.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. This is Lucas Parker for the PressCorps. Quick alert here. I know there might be a developer-sponsored broadcast that will be interrupting here soon, but before then, we'll go ahead and bring you continued coverage on the front line as it develops. I've migrated over to Foxcatcher and Weathered Expanse. This is a very intense front line. Wardens have been firing artillery intermittently on the town hall here. I'm sure you can hear it. The artillery firing on the Colonial-controlled town hall. I do know there is at least 1 Colonial infantry support tank in play. 2 heavily damaged Warden light tanks. Their armor is not looking too hot. Does seem to be that there is also an Outlaw prototype in play as well, and some kind of half-track, though I can't quite make out what type of half-track it is in the darkness. We're also looking at a Colonial push into a Warden concrete line here. There's a fair amount of gap, maybe 80 some odd meters between where the Colonials are fighting and where that concrete line is. The Wardens do have some emplacements that I saw earlier as the Colonials were firing flares over that concrete line. There is at least one emplaced anti-tank gun, the 68mm Leary shell bore, and there is also a Leary snare trap, the dual 12.7mm anti-infantry flak gun. What we're looking at here are concrete bunkers with howitzer garrisons, AT garrisons, and rifle garrisons on them. They all look to have power, whereas the Colonials are relying mostly on the cover from this town that they had captured, including sandbags and the occasional pillbox. As you can hear, this fighting is very, very intense. Explosives are being exchanged. That emplaced anti-tank gun is firing on something. I can't quite see it in the darkness. As artillery continues to fall. You hear Colonial soldiers around me, trying to make sure this town hall stays up. We did see a few flanking maneuvers here earlier. There was one that was attempted by the Colonials, although I don't think they knew that that emplaced anti-tank gun was there, and it quickly shut that one down. Have seen that outlaw move in and around as well, but it being nighttime, and I know that Colonials are in possession of some infantry anti-tank weaponry, it does seem that they are sitting back for now. I personally am holding up in the town hall, the Colonial-controlled town hall here, trying to stay out of this artillery fire. The area in between me and the Warden line is hot, to say the least. My priority being to stay safe first and foremost before we bring you coverage. But it does seem like Colonials are putting pressure on that emplaced anti-tank gun. Maybe? No. Wardens are destroying their own gate? Or is that a Colonial gate? There's a gate on the road immediately to the northeast of the pit that has that emplaced anti-tank gun in it. There are 2 Warden light tanks currently firing on that gate. It's heavily damaged. It looks like a Tier 3 gate, so I'm going to assume it's Warden. I can't quite tell what the color is through the darkness. It does look to be blue. They've stopped firing on the gate. Maybe there was a Colonial using it as cover. Outlaw and the 2 light tanks now moving a little bit further outside of the safety of their concrete bunker line, engaging Colonial infantry. Does seem that this Colonial infantry trading shots with Warden infantry out in this field over here to the northwest of the town. There's this large section of no man's land. It does look like there's maybe 1 or 2 craters in it, but apart from that it is open field. Does seem like there might be a bunker or some other. Those are foundations. The remnants of a facility is what they're fighting over right now. Tanks moving in on top of that foundation. Outlaw whole machine gun opening up to push the Wardens back. Or, sorry, not Wardens, push the Colonials back. Both light tanks and that outlaw opening up on Colonial tripods, it seems. There's a 30mm firing from a rock wall, penetrating hit on the outlaw. It's backing off now.
Yo, careful tank, the tunnel.
Was quickly retaliated against by color.
Need for speed too, baby.
Warden's throwing HEs on that gate. Again, there goes. Gate's down. I would assume, since I is fairly certain that it is their... Is it the Warden's gate? So I can assume that they took that down to open up the arc for that emplaced anti-tank gun that they have. Which, it being a Tier 3 gate, maybe a bit of a loss of resources, but I don't know if there was a wall there before and that was all that's left. Or if someone just built that on a whim.
Hey, he needs a gunner.
We'll see if Colonials bring up any armor to counter the Warden armor. I haven't seen any armor in play. There was a... Oh, hold on a moment.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There was a infantry support tank, a vetted infantry support tank with camouflage on it. These are a bit more durable than normal tanks. And
Where do you need a medic?
it was operating down the road over here, a little bit deeper in the Colonial lines, suppressing Warden infantry. I do not see it anymore. I do not think it got destroyed. I think it might have pulled back. As of now, I don't see any Colonial armor in play.
Oh boy, your mic's just fucked, yeah?
Yeah, I muted him. It's the Italy Michigayo, something. Can't say his name.
Colonials were firing flares earlier. I don't know if their supply of flares has ran out or if they just decided to hold off till morning.
Hey, step outside real quick. Let me give you these commands.
Just can hear the colonial infantry around me organizing. We'll see if I can find a better position now that the artillery has calmed down a little bit. So we move over here. A little bit away from the town hall. A little bit closer to the front line here. We are looking at front line starting to calm down the fighting a little bit. There are shots being exchanged in the darkness from both sides. But it does seem that the conflict is de-escalating in the darkness. It is very late here. 448 hours on day 338. But as this front line dies down a little bit, I'm getting word that seems like we might be interrupted here by a official developer broadcast. So we're going to take our leave here. Again, this is Lucas Parker for the PressCorps reporting live from Foxcatcher in the Weathered Expanse. We'll see how this broadcast pans out, and we might bring you continued coverage afterwards. But until then, this is Lucas Parker signing off.
The PressCorps is an all-volunteer creative collective of reporters, broadcasters, artists, and more from the MMO video game Foxhole, developed by Siege Camp. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in 2018 by former Planetside 2 Radio Free Auraxis host, CaptainInArms. It is a separate community entity and is not officially representative of Siege Camp. For more information, visit our website at PressCorpsGaming.com. That's PressCorps Gaming.com.